Everything starts somewhere.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, all. Thank you for joining me. Oh my gosh, I love that intro. Every time I see it, it makes me smile. So huge thank you to Loki for making that. How is everyone today? Thank you for joining me. Yes, Discworld is back. And a huge thank you to Louise for giving me the idea for doing this today. Originally, what I was going to do is like a top countdown of my favourite books, but this is much more interesting. We've actually got some early reviews of the watch, so I'm going to kind of pull up a selection, run everything from comic book resources to the Mary Sue, and kind of give you I can't say it with a straight face. Give you their reviews. It's pretty much unanimous, as we probably could have guessed. But it's still funny. So let me say hello to everyone before we get started. Good afternoon to Chris Persian, Psychodwarf 9. Welcome, guys. Louise, hello, sweetheart. Who else have we got? Lord Thoth, welcome. Good to see you. Colin P. Smith, good afternoon, love. Good evening. Let's scroll down. Broken Entertainment. Dee Dee Myers, hey guys, welcome. Joseph Nash, hello, love. Good to see you. Cavatenio Che, welcome. Dave G Sound. Thank you for joining me, everyone. How is everyone today? Can you believe it's the 20th of December? We're nearly there, guys. Nearly there. Nearly can give the finger to 2020 and into 2021. Spike and Mischief, hello, love. Good to see you. Oh, thank you, everyone, for joining me. I appreciate it. So, guess I better jump straight into it. The first one that we found was actually comic book resources. And they jump straight into it with The Watch. BBC America's Discworld series is all style, no substance. Oh dear. No, who could have predicted that? I love this article because it's very tongue-in-cheek. The BBC's Watch is loosely based on Terry Pratchett's Discworld books, has a strong sense of style but lacks compelling narrative. Yeah, I could have guessed that just from the trailers and from the stills released. It they clearly had no idea where they wanted to take the series or what they were actually basing it on. It was very, very odd. They've gone for some weird steampunk look, I guess you would call it, which really doesn't fit in the Discworld. They As you got to the very last book that was written, they just kind of got into what would, I suppose you'd call, the Industrial Revolution. They'd just discovered steam power. So yeah, but the Discworld runs on magic. TV adaptations of popular literary fiction are tricky to pull off. When those works are complex and detailed as Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, it's pretty much impossible. Sky One did it pretty well. Just saying. The Watch attempted to get around this challenge by insisting the BBC America show is not an adaptation of the novels in Pratchett's series about the Ankh-Morpork city, but a non-canon narrative inspired, there's that word again, by its characters. As we've been saying from the start, this is Discworld in name only. This was just to draw the fans in and kind of to bank on nostalgia, I guess. People's love of the book series. Where do we get to? This has raised alarms with the book's dedicated fans as they have reason to be concerned. The series adjusts and reimagines. I think we're going to be seeing this a lot. Many of the novel's characters, settings, and eliminates others entirely. That this is based just on one book, as they're saying here, I don't think it's true. I think it's based on all of the Watch books, but it seems to be mostly based on Night Watch, which is one of the later Watch books, so that doesn't make any sense either. While creating a story that's a mishmash of the at least two of the City Watch's centric plots. Again, Night Watch and Guards, not a good combination. They're set years apart, and Terry's writing was very different. So whereas Guards is a much more comedy-based book, there's lots of kind of silly subplots and characters. Night Watch is much more adult. It deals with much heavier themes. And it's really not very funny, although it's my favourite book that he's written. Yet if this was done in an attempt to appeal to viewers who are unfamiliar with the Discworld series, it hasn't worked. No, you can't throw people in the deep end and tell them, you need to watch this. This is the books. This isn't the books. This isn't Discworld. While the show is stylish and quirky and even periodically funny, I think the audience will be the judge of that. As a narrative, it never manages to capture the imagination. Oh gosh. The show centres on Sam Vimes, played by Richard Dormer, who I like Richard Dormer, but he just seems to be hamming it up and chewing the scenery in every single scene that they've shown in the trailer. The captain of the City Watch, a jaded drunk who was checked out of life. Yeah. This is because since he first joined the law enforcement organisation, the city has legalised crime for all intents and purposes. This is true. This is true. There are guilds in the city, and they all have to follow the rules. And one of the guilds is the Thieves Guild. Ankh-Morpork permits anyone to hire another to commit a crime, from assassination to petty theft, as long as the person they hire is a member of a professional guild and they have a receipt for the transaction. As a result, Vimes and his team, which includes Corporal Angua, a werewolf, Constable Cheery, a dwarf, a dwarf who's asserted her gender identity as a female by shaving her beard. She didn't do that in the books. Jiri always had a beard. And Sergeant Detritus, a troll made out of rocks. Well, trolls in the Discworld are made out of rocks. But Detritus is actually one of the best characters in any of the books. He starts off as a very stupid character, and by the end of it, he's one of the most popular. They don't serve much purpose. This starts to change when several things happen almost simultaneously, and this is where we jump in with a mix of Night Watch, because this gentleman here is the character of Carcer, and it's mixing Night Watch and Guards because there's a dragon, as seen in the trailers. It's just the strangest combination, and I don't think it's going to work at all, but I'll be very interested to find out. And big welcome to Generalissimo Jefe. Problem being, welcome, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. Speak for the Dead. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome. So they're just kind of giving you a little bit of a backstory. And again, Lord Vetinari, one of the main male characters in the book, very, very popular character, has been gender swapped. Lord Vetinari is now played by Anna Chancellor. Don't see why. No particular reason for changing it, just they did. And so from here, the plot becomes a race to stop Carcer's plan to destroy the city by harnessing the power of a dragon. Again, mishmash of different stories that have no reason to be mashed together. Completely different timelines. And even the characters themselves, from the first book, Guards, up until Night Watch, they're completely different. The characters grow, they evolve, they change. And you kind of learn to love them along the way. My favourite character, or at least one of them, is Sam Vimes, because he goes through such a transformation as a character. So I'm not looking forward to seeing Paul Sam up on the big screen. Incidentally, I've been trying to find out when this is released in the UK, and I don't think it is being released in the UK. I think it's only on BBC America. How lucky are you guys? So I'll have to find it some other means to review it. But usually, if they do something like that, they've done it before with Doctor Who, where they release them at the same time. So it seems a little bit odd that there's no kind of date for this side of the pond. But I will keep an eye on it. Oh, and this line here really, really annoyed me when I first saw it. And periodically they run into a put upon incompetent Death, as played by Wendell Pierce. Death is never incompetent. Death is one of the most important characters in the books. Oh gosh, and there's a dwarf character, Cheery, without the beard. And this is our werewolf character. And I don't know why they're all really dirty. I don't quite get that, but they're all covered in filth. Every scene I've seen them in, every still, they're all covered in mud. It's like, I get it, it's supposed to look like some dirty Victorian city, but no, people do wash. It's just... They go on to say, I suspect for Discworld fans, this will come across as like a big budget City Watch fanfiction. I'm sure there's much better fanfiction out there if I went looking for it. As someone unfamiliar with the books, I can't claim any personal attachment to any specific part of that story, but even the little research that I did made it clear the show doesn't bear an especially strong resemblance to its supposed source material. No shit. The bigger disappointment, however, is despite these changes, the show hasn't managed to do anything compelling with them. The plot mechanics of the story are on full display, which makes the watcher's pursuit of MacGuffin after MacGuffin feel like forced labour instead of organically motivated action. Furthermore, the reasons for Carter's activities are turned into a mystery that never come across as worth solving. Well, that's kind of what happens when you take a villain and turn him into a sympathetic character. Carter in the books has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. He's a sociopath. So, God knows why they thought that was a good idea. It's difficult to care about the characters too. The actors do what they can with the material they're given, each committing to their characters' specific traits and backgrounds. I especially enjoyed Eaton Kent's Cheery, whose smart sensitivity is a nice counterpoint to her cynical or naive colleagues. Naive or stupid, I don't know. Still, the show is so caught up in maintaining its punk rock aesthetic, and if anyone's seen the newest trailer, it actually shows them with electric microphones and electric guitars. I have no words. And Devil May Care attitude, it never makes anything on screen feel worth investing in. So while the watch boasts an impressively designed sets, costumes and characters that create a strong sense of place, even if that place isn't necessarily Terry Pratchett's Discworld, it has little going for it other than its style. Huh. Thank you, Simon Allen, for that one. Appreciate it. And yeah, they made it a matriarchy. They did, yeah, absolutely. Chris Persia, Rise and Shine with the Valkyries. I'm guessing them being filthy is meant to show the being oppressed by the patriarchy. I just think it's really bad character design. I just think it's kind of like a really dirty, kind of grimy, Victorian-looking city, and they ran with it, even though it really isn't. It's so strange. So let me pull up another one and see what everyone else has got to say. I've gone checking and I've looked really, really hard, and all of them, from all of the ones that I've pulled up, they're all coming to the same conclusion, which is kind of funny. But we'll be very curious to see how this works. So this one is AV Club. The watch will disappoint Discworld fans and maybe everyone else too. Wow. Oh, is it bad that I'm actually looking forward to seeing it just so I can tear it apart? It's going to be my version of STD, I think. Ah, dear. Watching the BBC America's The Watch, at least watching it as a fan. So whoever reviewed this does actually know the books. As a fan of Terry Pratchett's massively best-selling Discworld novels, which it is very, love it, very loosely based, is a bit like listening to two songs running at the exact same time. There's the surface level tune, i.e. all the things that have been lifted directly from the long-running series, the names, the plot points, the orangutan librarian. Interesting. That's the first time the librarian's been mentioned. And then there's the far weirder show that's lurking underneath. All the stuff ostentiously meant to lure Pratchett fans in. Grungy effort at that. For some reason, aspires to be the most punk rock. Again, that word, punk rock. That's all I'm seeing. Punk rock. And oh god, I've lost it. Yep, punk rock. Again, nobody wants punk rock. I don't know why they think it's a good idea. Made complete with flashing neon lights, Pixie's needle drops, and liberal dosage of raised middle fingers. Oh, joy. And here's the sad truth. Neither of the two shows the watch seems to be trying to be very good. Alright, so no matter what they try, they've failed, basically. And I hate that picture. I went looking for some decent images for the thumbnail, and this is probably one of the only pictures that keeps popping up. Our assembled cast. And I like how they just shove detritus to the back, and his character's design looks terrible as well. Let's dispense with the fan-focused stuff first. People hoping to get a glossy TV version of Discworld are going to come away with more irritation than hours of recognition. To be fair, the show's creators have been upfront about the fact that such hopes weren't likely to be fulfilled. Not true. Now they have, that they've been criticised for it, but before, they were leaning very heavily on the fact that it's based on Discworld. So much so that Simon Allen actually, at one of the conventions, talked to us about it. And they said how much Terry Pratchett's work meant to him, what a big fan he was. And he swore to the fans that he was going to do his absolute best to bring Discworld to life. Simon Allen lied. Yes, the lead character is still the Night Watch captain, Sam Vimes, played by Richard Dormer, who most people will know from Game of Thrones. I didn't think of much of him in Game of Thrones, I've got to admit, but that was just me. In a performance that appears to have been lifted more than to have... God, this is badly written. In a performance that appears to have lifted more than just the eyeliner from some of Johnny Depp's latter-day Pirates roles. Wow. The setting is still Ankh-Morpork, a mishmash of fantasy tropes, 19th century London, socioeconomics, and rampant magic intervention. I'm not seeing a lot of magic intervention, especially in the trailers. But as close as they got was they showed a little dragon, and I think there's a talking sword at some point. So not really seeing magic being incorporated into everyday life. And the loose structure of the plot: time-travelling criminal unleashes fire-breathing dragon on the city, incompetent cops investigate. Yeah, again, as I say, taken from Guards and Night Watch and just kind of mashed together. There were closer related books that would have worked better, but I think if they were going for it, they should have just stuck with the Guards plot and not tried to bring in Night Watch, which involves time travel and revolutions and much heavier themes that they really can't make light of. So all of this was actually filmed in South Africa, and there's very little kind of information about it because I've gone looking. I know they casted a couple of interviews about it, and they said they were impressed with the sets, but all they said that it was incredibly hot to work there. So even they couldn't really get very enthusiastic about it, unfortunately. And I do feel a little bit sorry for them, because a lot of them I don't recognise, so I'm guessing they're relative newcomers. Only really Anna Chancellor I know, and Richard Dormer I recognise. The rest of them are pretty much unknowns, at least for me. The article goes on to say, unfortunately, it's not an especially great show. It's actually trying to be either largely serialised. The Watch runs into a problem that often afflicts its ilk. The need for each episode to have some sort of emotional climax in order to make everything feel complete. In this case, these moments tend to wildly clash with the show's tone, a tricky little thing that seems to be wriggling between outright satire in its own form and sincere commitment to the same. So it's trying to be funny, but trying to be serious at the same time and failing at both. Oh dear. And I should probably point out, I still don't know how many episodes there are because I can't find it. I'm guessing there's probably 8 to 10 because that's usually how many episodes it runs. But, oh dear, this could take a while. Let's see what else they have to say. Oh, there he is. That's a better look. There's a better look at our troll character. So I'm guessing he's mostly CGI. There may or may not be some body in a suit as well for the close-ups. But look how tiny she is. She should have played the dwarf character instead of our powerful, no-nonsense werewolf. There is a bright point, apparently. It's not all dire. Dormer can be great when he keeps himself atop the rolling ball of Axis ticks he's saddled himself with, and the rest of the cast typically follow suit. Lara Rossi is understandably charismatic as dragon-wielding terrorist lady Sybil Ramkin. That's worrying. She's nothing to do with being that. She's a highborn lady, and she breeds dragons. She rescues dragons because in Discworld, dragons are kind of like pets that people get, and then when they get too big, they get rid of them. But you can't really get rid of a dragon because they breathe fire, and the Discworld dragons, if you startle them or they get upset, they actually explode because of all the chemicals inside them. So Lady Sybil, she rescues them and looks after them. She runs a charity for them. Colette is understated but effective as the Watcher's most capable werewolf. And again, Joe Eaton Kent gives what will hopefully be a breakout performance as self-assured forensics officer Cheery. The cast is there, and so is the heart, coming at Terry Pratchett's favourite themes, humanity and empathy. Yeah, those themes do run through pretty much all of the books. From oblique and sometimes fascinating angles, it's the words and the look of the thing striking but wildly inconsistent that let the programme down. Oh dear. See. And Psychodorf says, Terry Pratchett is one of the smartest psych professors I've ever read. Terry understood people. He was very good with people. He works as a journalist, so he saw people at their worst sometimes, as well as at their best. And thank you, Colin. 8 episodes. I thought that would be the case, to be honest. Yeah, 8 to 10. I didn't think they'd do any more. 6 would have been probably better. Speak for the Dead. I'm not familiar with this at all. Is this based on a book series? It is. It's based on Terry Pratchett's Discworld. It's not as well known, I'm guessing, over in America, but over in the UK, it's huge and pretty much always has been. Louise, Good Omens did a wonderful job, and there's no excuse for this. There isn't. But I think the only reason they did a wonderful job with Good Omens is because Neil Gaiman wouldn't let them do any other. The problem with The Watch is that they managed to kind of find a loophole, and the Terry Pratchett estate, so Rhianna Pratchett, Rob Wilkins, who manages Terry's business, I guess now, that he's no longer with us, they were completely cut out of the deal. They have nothing to do with this, and they've made it abundantly clear on Twitter that they're trying to distance themselves from it as much as possible. The other adaptations that were done by The Mob and Narrativia, which are completely part of Terry Pratchett's business, basically. So, and there is more to come from them. I think this is going to be kind of one of the low points, unfortunately. But the way I see it is, it's going to upset the fans, and it has done. I think if anyone saw what went on Twitter when it was first announced, I couldn't find anything positive. Pretty much everyone was very, very scathing of it. They were disappointed. And kind of bewildered, really. People were perplexed as to what they're actually seeing. Even when the cast was announced, people were very sketchy. Even though I did have high hopes for Dormer, because I thought, yeah, given, you know, he kind of had the look about him. He kind of had that kind of scruffy Sam Vimes look, and then he shows up with eyeliner and just mugging to the camera. It's I don't know what direction he was given, but it's very, very odd. But my main concern is this, especially airing, if it does just air in the US, this is going to be a lot of people's first introduction to Discworld, and this is going to be a terrible kind of jumping in point for a lot of people. If this had been just some random fantasy TV series, it wouldn't have done very well, but it wouldn't have done any damage either. But I think the same as the problem we've had with Star Trek, with Discovery, you know, they're trying to appeal to new fans whilst pushing established fans out of the picture at the same time. Let's have a look. I've got a couple more to bring up as well. What do you guys think? Will you be watching it? Anyone in the US or anyone in the UK? Will you be doing it too? I'm going to try. There we go. Here's another one from Polygon, which is actually one of the best ones that I've read. Again, there's our character. Filthy. She's our werewolf. Weird. And what does Polygon have to say? To best-selling fantasy author Terry Pratchett, there's no such thing as a too obvious joke. Take his character Constable Carrot, a well-meaning young man looking to make his name in law enforcement. Terry Pratchett's novels explain that Carrot is a human but was raised by dwarves after his birth parents abandoned him. The joke being he's tall for a dwarf. And he is. I think he's 6'4" or 6'6". Which led to considerable tensions down the line. And yeah, that's actually a good analogy. Will follow an elf. It's that kind of idea. But Pratchett did it first. It's a decent gag, and it shows up fairly early on in the BBC's Watch. But soon after, Carrot meets forensics expert Constable Cheery. In this series, she's about as tall as Carrot, and she's an actual dwarf. That means Carrot's size isn't unusual, which ruins the gag. Eaton is fine in the role, and when the creative team decided to cast them, they could have easily skipped this particular part of Carrot's backstory. Instead, they keep both. While it's not a major flaw, it's indicative of a muddled production where the team can't decide whether they want to adapt Pratchett's work or riff on it, or just use it for window dressing. Again, Discworld in name only. They want to hit all the points that the fans would be familiar with, but they don't actually want to delve too deeply into the book, because I'm guessing they thought they would alienate a lot of people. If anyone's seen the other media productions, Hogfather, and especially Making Money, you'd know that that's not the case. It can be done quite easily. Somebody who's never read the book can sit down and watch either of those and enjoy it for what it is. You don't need an in-depth backstory of all of the characters to get the jokes. You know, Terry Pratchett is funny, and sometimes he's quite profound, but a lot of the jokes are very rapid fire, especially in the earlier books. The Watch is wacky. I hate that word. Exhaustingly so. Really full of rapid fire cuts, incongruous music choices, and a sense of humour that should be familiar to anyone who's seen an animated movie in the past 10 years. Oh dear. Some of the jokes land, whilst many of them don't, but that style feels directly at odds with the series' source of inspiration. Pratchett's Discworld novels are the fantasy equivalent of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I guess. Dry, farcical humour that winks at the audience, accepts they have more warmth, better world building, and a deep, pervasive humanism. The comedy is broad and clever, with Groucho Marx's absurdism sitting cheek to jowl with Abbott Costello slapstick. Which, oh my god, this person rambles. Which fumbles over Swifty and wit. The book's mix of tones hold together thanks to Pratchett's clear, comfortable voice. And I think I've talked about this before. Terry Pratchett has a very clear author's voice when you read his books. Very much like Dickens, you pick up a Dickens book and you know what you're going to get from it. You recognise the author's voice as you read the stories. And his strong grasp of story and pacing. Very little of his work could be described as self-consciously edgy. True. This can't be said for the show. I have no idea what's going on in this picture. Yeah, okay, we're going to scroll past that. In and of itself, this isn't necessarily a problem. The creative team behind The Watch, written by Simon Allen and produced by Johan Noble, has made it clear that while the series was inspired by Pratchett's work, it isn't beholden to it. It should be. If you're going to lean on an IP, you should show respect. If you're going to try and get the fans involved and excited about it, you should respect them. Especially given that these books have such a long history and such a huge and loyal fan base. Given I don't know what that means. The strong paucity of strong Pratchett adaptations, this is arguably a sensible approach. It's just that in their attempt to come up with new take on familiar material, they repeatedly reference that material without providing any new context or perspective to distinguish their work. What Spin the Watch does add is a kind of overly aggressive quirk, a corporate punk styling that uses faux edginess to cover for well-worn tropes and bad storytelling. Yeah. From the trailers that I've seen, the writing isn't particularly strong, the dialogue. I think the cast did what they could with it, but even they didn't seem to really believe what they were saying. The pace is zippy enough that watching the show never becomes an active chore, but the charm is almost entirely absent. And the charm is what a lot of people latch onto, especially with the books. As I said, Pratchett has a very strong fan base who have followed him for many years. Pulling elements from different books in the series, The Watch plot follows Sam Vimes and his motley band of misfits as they attempt to stop a villain from Vimes' past from destroying the city of Ankh-Morpork. Said villain has a name that should be familiar with Discord fans, but Carsadon, seen here, is a far cry from the nasty sociopath introduced in Terry Pratchett's Night Watch. Yeah, I don't know. They could have easily just pulled a random bad guy. They could have just made up a random bad guy. It didn't have to be Carsa. It's a strange pull. The novel Carsa is a right clever bastard, despicable to a fault and loathsome to boot. He has no redeeming characteristics whatsoever. He's described as having a devil on both shoulders, and they're in competition with each other. The TV show Carsa barely has any personalities at all, sulking through scenes and acting aggrieved before quickly fading into the overly loud background. His backstory with Vimes is presented in awkward flashbacks, introduced via a wholly unnecessary framing device in the first episode. Oh, joy. That raises more questions than it asks, and nothing about the character ever rises above basic plot functionality. Bad enough to include bland antagonist, worse still to name him after a far more interesting one. He is, but even in the book, he's only ever a plot device to get the Night Watch plot going. He's not really instrumental. He shows up at the beginning and then he shows up at the end of the book, and that's pretty much it. The rest of the cast ranges in quality from distracting to good, with Dormer's Vimes unfortunately falling into the latter camp. It's hard to know how much blame the script or direction for the choice of the actor makes here, but his decision to go through every scene with his jaw thrust forward like his skull is trying to escape his face is an odd one. I love that. It speaks to a general tendency to overplay the character's physicality as a sort of Gillingham-less level grotesque. That's a really weird one as well. That's a shame, given that Vimes is one of Pratchett's best characters, a working-class hero whose common sense, decency, and basic humanity have little in common with the grimacing punchline scene here. Vimes in the books is he represents every man, basically. He's someone he's kind of put upon. He thinks his best time is gone, and when we first meet him, he's actually an alcoholic. You know, he has no motivation. He has nothing to look forward to, as the previous review said. The Watch, because crime is now legalized. They don't really need a police force. The only time that they ever get involved is when there's a unlicensed crime, and that's not very often, because the Thieves Guild will get to the person who's committing the unlicensed crime first, because they're taking their money. Oops. Jeff says, I think I get that with my cable package, but it still sounds miserable. It does. It does. I will definitely try and find it. But it's very odd that, given they're trying to push it to a US audience rather than kind of fall back on a UK audience, which probably would have given them more views, even just out of curiosity. But still, hopefully it will be released, even if it's on one of the streaming channels. I'm guessing that's where they'll put it, because I'm pretty sure that they won't release it on, say, BBC One or BBC Two. I can't see that happening, even though they did release his Dark Materials there first. Where did we get to? Few other performances stand out quite so sharply, for good or for ill. The best that can be said about the core ensemble is that it gels quickly into a likeable enough whole. So the cast kind of works together, but there's no standout performances. I kind of would have guessed that, to be honest. I think the cast just did the best of what they were given. But I don't think any of them really understood or were fans of the books. I think a couple of them maybe read some of it from the interviews that I saw, but I know Richard Dormer didn't. I don't think he knew anything about the series until he was cast. The show's version of Ankh-Morpork starts with the source book's fantasy melting pot and throws on a steampunk gloss for no readily apparent reason. It's as if the production team decided that they really wished they were working on a late series of Doctor Who episode and decided to build sets and costumes for that instead. Don't give them any ideas, please. Some individual moments and scenes stand out. One highlight finds the heroes pretending to be a band for reasons. Now, this is shown in the latest trailer, and I wasn't impressed at all, because, like I said, for a world that runs on magic, there isn't any electricity, and yet they're singing into clearly electric mics. They're playing electric guitars. None of this makes any sense. Another has them visiting a nursing home with a very specific deterrent against violence, but the city as a whole never coheres, which makes it difficult to see the Watch as a part of it. Yeah, the Ankh-Morpork is described a bit like a termite mound. It's the biggest city on the Discworld. It's where everybody comes together and tries to get along as much as possible. Even races such as dwarves and trolls, which are enemies usually, can kind of put aside their differences just to kind of survive in the city, which is kind of nice to see. The normal arc of the group is watching them go from misfits to heroes, which is how the books run, but without clear sense of community to protect. The story becomes more about them going through the expected emotions rather than justifying those emotions. It just seems like they had an idea but had no idea how to kind of bring it about. Let's get rid of that. Let's see what the chat is saying. Loads of punk rock or pop rocks. I'm thinking it's going to be more pop rocks, to be honest, from what I've seen. Why they need a musical interlude, I don't know. Chris Persia. Maybe the Thieves Guild should hit the BBC for committing an unlicensed. Well, it's certainly a crime, Chris. I would agree with that. And good evening, Pod Racing Palpatine. Good to see you. Welcome. Thank you for joining. And SRB, I'd agree. Yeah, there was a lot of boxes that they ticked, I think. I don't know why. Like I said, a lot of these characters really didn't need changing, especially the Patrician. I think that's got a lot of people upset, because the Patrician's one of the most popular characters. Vetinari is he's kind of a Machiavellian character, but he's good for the city because he balances it. He knows everything that's going on before, and he knows generally before it happens because he's got spies everywhere. I do have one more to pull up, which is kind of funny, and this one is actually from the Mary Sue, which I never thought I'd be sharing, but there you go. And even the Mary Sue doesn't have anything good to say about it. First reviews for BBC's Watch are not sold on the series. The adaptation of Terry Pratchett's Discworld books have been met with negative reviews. Yeah, you don't say. Adapting a beloved book series for film or television is rarely an easy task. Fans can be exactingly particular about how they envision a world and its characters, and its creators can find themselves walking a fine line between honouring the source material and creating their version of the world on screen. But few have met with an outright antipathy that the BBC's Watches has already inspired. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I said, they took a license, they took an IP that people knew, and they just kind of twisted it and slapped on this. See, here they call it a cyberpunk, but I'd still say it's steampunk or punk rock. But either way, it doesn't belong in the Discworld. Adding fuel to the fire were tweets from Terry Pratchett's daughter Rihanna, who wrote, "Look, I think it's fairly obvious that the watch shares no DNA with my father's watch. This is neither criticism nor support. It is what it is." I think they've gone pretty quiet about it. I think, and I haven't really seen it being kind of promoted. I haven't seen anything pop up either on Twitter. It's certainly the new trailer dropped recently. I didn't even know about it until I went looking for it. And I think this is just going to be one of those series that is just going to be kind of left by the wayside. I don't think it's not going to hurt Discworld, but it's certainly not going to bring any new fans or endear itself to the old fans. It's an exercise in what you shouldn't do with an IP. What else have they got to say? Well, we've already read the Polygon, and I've already read that one. Thank you, Mary Sue. See, this is why I went to the Mary Sue last, because I knew they'd already used other people's. They conclude with, we'll have to wait and see for ourselves how the series strikes us, but it looks like the less you know about the source material, the better. The watch premieres on BBC America on January 3rd, with the first episode arriving on New Year's Eve on AMC Plus streaming. Now, you guys are going to have to tell me what that is. I'm guessing they're doing like a premiere, and then the series is dropping properly, because I don't know what that is, unfortunately. Captain Spire. These characters looks like from Ready Player One and Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's the aesthetic they'll be going for. Yeah, they saw that it had worked for those films, and they kind of wanted that. But at the same time, there's got to be a reason for having that, and there's no reason to have a steampunk or punk or cyberpunk, whatever you want to call it, look in a world that's based on a fantasy novel. It just does not work. It mashes up way too much. Colin, when the Mary Sue dislikes something and still doesn't make you want to watch it, you know it's bad. Yeah, Mary Sue, bless them, they did their best to try and spin it, but even they couldn't come up with anything positive. What does Jeff say? AMC's American Movie Classics, a cable channel here in the States. I'm guessing AMC Plus is their streaming channel. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeff. Vaguely recognise the AMC, but I wasn't sure if it was what I thought it was, because I know it's dropping on BBC America. So whether or not they will drop it all in one go, or whether they will kind of space it out an episode a week, who knows? I don't think it really matters, to be honest. So what do you think, guys? Is anyone going to watch it? Has seeing these early reviews kind of swayed you into watching it? Or is it going to be like me? It's going to be a hate watch. It's a shame, because I think if they'd done it properly, and they've had a long time to work on this. I think this was first mentioned probably, I want to say 2016. I think that was the convention where we first saw Simon Allen on stage talking about it. So this has been in the works for a long time. And this was after Terry had passed on. But at that time, they were still kind of under the Discworld kind of umbrella. Dee Dee, probably hate watch or not watch at all. One of the two. Yeah, I'd agree, to be honest. I wish I could say it's probably worth your while, but I don't think it's going to be. SRB, no, I'm getting Hogfather out. Hogfather, I would recommend to everybody, absolutely. Hogfather and Making Money, both of them definitely worth a watch. Captain Spire, whenever I played the games, no matter how dire things got, there was always a witty, whimsical atmosphere. Your character could overcome and even become the hero, at least the victor. This makes me feel that all they're after is to teach me a lesson and never actually have good humour. No, I think they were just leaning way too heavily on people wanting to be curious about this thing. It's edgy when it doesn't need to be edgy. There's probably going to be jokes that are going to fall flat because they haven't set them up properly. Like the one that they mentioned about Carrot being a dwarf. It's funny, but if you've got an actual dwarf character that's as tall as your adopted dwarf, it takes the humour away. Oh. I'll spend my time watching Hogfather. And I will, Jeff. I will recommend Sammy to watch Hogfather. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you guys. I appreciate you joining me today. I hope this sheds a little bit more light on what's coming. I can't say I'm looking forward to it because that would be a lie, but I definitely will be at least reviewing some of the episodes, if not all of them. As many as I can get my hands on, I will review and let you know as a fan what I thought of them. Spoiler alert, I'm probably going to hate it from what I've seen, but if I'm wrong, I will put my hands up and I will admit it. You know, it's I'd like to be proven wrong, at least with something that I love as much as Discworld, because any Discworld that we get now that there won't be any more books is welcome. Oh, big thank you guys for joining me. Try and think if there's anything else to tell you. We will be back tomorrow, of course, with Vikings, and Sammy and I. Looking forward to that. I've actually got another episode to watch, so that's what I'll be doing after. And Wednesday, we've got the review of The Expanse, which I'm really looking forward to because Sammy and Loki did an amazing job last week. And it's so good to actually have a show that people are looking forward to and enjoying. It makes such a big difference to have something to review that we're enjoying and something that actually the fans can get excited about. So really looking forward to that. And other than that, we'll see you in the chats for Loki's show tomorrow morning. Big thank you guys, and you have a good weekend. Thank you, everyone. Mwah! Bye.